What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today I want to show you guys how to go from this to this and then this, all using different lighting setups and arrangements. So our first lighting setup is actually this one, which is no light setup, and all we're doing is just letting the natural light from the outside come in and fill up the room. So here I have all my curtains open from both my windows, and I've got my door open, letting even more light coming in through into the room. So actually there's nothing really wrong with this, and here looking at my monitor, all the light coming into the room makes it look quite nice and quite natural. And this is the look that most beginning YouTubers will go for when they don't have any light and they just film off their phone next to a window or whatever. They'll film with natural light coming in because it doesn't look too bad. The only problem with this is that the light keeps constantly changing. So say if a sun goes over a set of clouds, meaning there will be less light coming into the room, so the light won't be consistent, and it makes it look very amateurish. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't shoot with natural lighting, just because some of my favorite directors, all they do is shoot with natural lighting, but it's controlled natural lighting. So they look at when the sun's gonna be at a certain time. They might shoot indoors and they know that the sun's gonna come in and it's gonna light up the room in a specific way. So it's all very controlled natural shooting. But this inherently, it doesn't look bad, and it's actually quite nice. But I know that as soon as the sun comes out of the clouds, you're gonna get this really big glare of yellow sunlight coming in through the window, completely throwing off my lighting. So this is all very natural, but it can be very unbalanced and uncontrolled. But that's the first lighting setup. So this is my next lighting setup, and what I've done is I've closed off my curtains from both sides. I've closed my door so there's no light coming in, and I've added just one light here in front of me. Which a lot of you will be using something like a ring light, which will be directly in front of you, lighting up your whole face, making it very nice and bright. And we like to call this high key lighting, that fills up your whole face and makes everything look quite bright. And what I've also done is I've added a lampshade in the background just to give the audience a bit of a point of interest to look at and not make the frame look boring. So this is a really simple lighting setup that only involves one or two lights. Maybe your ring light that you've just bought, or your LED panel that goes on top of your camera, and just one ambience light or a practical light that we like to call, that goes in the background just to give the audience a point of interest. And like I said, make the frame look less boring. Now I'll show you what it looks like without any of these lights turned on, and I'll turn them on step by step so that you can see what it looks like. So here is with just my curtains closed and my door to the side closed. As you can see, it's a very horrible image. It's quite dark and it doesn't do anything for me. So we're gonna start turning them on, introducing lights one by one. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna introduce my key light, I guess, which is right in front of me, which will give me a very frontal directed light, filling up my whole face. This is what it looks like here. So again, much better. Now you can see my face clearly, and it gives you something, I would say, better to look at, but I don't know, you guys can be the judge of that. But it gives you something to look at and something to pay attention to. And now we're gonna turn on my backlight or my practical light, just to give the frame more of a dynamic feel to it. So now we have my practical light turned on to the back of me, and you can see that the whole image is just transformed by just using two lights and maybe blocking off some natural lighting. So this is something that you can do at home, whether you're a beginning YouTuber or you just want to play around with different lighting arrangements. This is one that's most highly recommended and universally used throughout the YouTube community. So for this lighting setup, it becomes a little bit more complicated. And what I've essentially done, I moved my key light that was in front of me, that fill light or that high key lighting that I had before, and I moved it to about 45 degrees to my left side at an angle facing downwards so they can get to this side of my face, and that's my key light now. So what this does, it creates a bit more contrast on my face. So if I have one side of my face lit more than the rest, it creates a bit more contrast, and this adds depth to the lighting within my face or the subject that you're trying to light. So if you have one light to the side of your subject at 45 degrees angle, you can create a really nice contrast between the light and the shadows. Now what I've also done to this is, because I didn't want too much shadows in my face, I've added something like a fill light, which is I put onto the right hand side of me. All I've done is I've added a big reflector. It could be anything like a piece of whiteboard or anything that can reflect light. Maybe not a mirror, don't use a mirror because that would be too much light in your face. Or maybe you can use a mirror, depends on what you want to use it for. Or depends what the look you're going for. But what I've used is, I've used a big round soft reflector that bounces the key light back onto my face, taking away the shadowy areas of my face. And I'll show you what that looks like now if I remove this reflector or this fill light that's coming from my right hand side. So here's the lighting setup without the fill light or without the reflector. It's subtle, but it does make a difference. And when you're looking at different lighting setups, depending on what you're using it for, it can be quite useful to have that fill light in there, or it can be useful to not have it there. It depends, again, it depends on the look that you're going for. But for this specific setup, I wanted to show you what it looked like, so I decided to keep it there. And normally in my YouTube setups, I don't have a fill light. I don't even have more than 2 lights, which is my key light here to the right of me. And I usually have something called a rim light, which is to the left of me, but not directly in front, more to the side, just to fill in the gaps around my shoulders and maybe a little bit on the side of my head. So I've added the fill light back in just so I can continue explaining. And as you've noticed, I've kept the practical light here in the back of me. What I've also done is I've added something called a backlight. What I've done is I've set up a light off a frame, which is essentially hitting the back of me. And I've set it to the same color temperature as the practical light behind me to give it a sense that I'm within the space and the light's not coming out of nowhere. So it makes it look like this light here, this practical light, is what's actually filling the side of my face or the back of my head, I suppose, which is the backlight. So this is it with the backlight, and this is it without the backlight. So again, it's very subtle, but it does make a difference. And depending on what look you want to go for, you know, it can be very useful. Like again, I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like. So here is me with a backlight and without it. So you can see here on the side of my face, it fills in the shadowy parts with a bit more of a tungsten or a yellow warm type of light, which can be associated with the light that's coming from the background. So now again, I'll show you guys what it looks like without every single setup so that you can see how these lights affect everything essentially. So here I am again, completely in the dark with no lights. I'm going to start introducing all the lights so you can see what difference it makes. First thing I'm going to start with is, of course, my key light. And here you go. Here's the separation between the key light coming from 45-degree angles to the left of me, creating separation and depth between the light side of my face and the shadowy part of my face. Next, we've added on the fill light, which is just my reflector bouncing the key light back onto the shadowy parts of my face, creating a much more smoother roll off within the shadows and lighting my face up a little bit nicer, I feel anyway. Next, we've turned on our backlight just to give it a little bit more separation between me and the background. And as well gives me a nice little warm pop here on the side of my body, of my face, and off my shoulder area. And next we're going to turn on our practical light to give a better sense of where I am within the space. And here you have it with my final practical light set up. This completes my lighting arrangement for this video. Lights can be used in a number of different ways. So depending on what look you're going for, you can set up a light practically anywhere and you can get a desired look or the look that you want to go for. You don't have to use all these reflectors and these practical lights and these backlights and these key lights. You can just go with natural lighting, but it really depends on you and what you want to do. If you only have one light, you can have it in front of you as a high key, which is used great in makeup and beauty type of commercials. Everything is very high key because they want you to see everything. If you want a little bit more of cinematic lighting setup, normally you put the key light to the left of you or to the right of you, and you can add more by putting in a fill light or a reflector, Or you can take away the reflector, creating more separation between the light and the shadows. Or you can actually just take off the key light and the fill light and just have the backlight shining on you, which can also create a very nice effect, which I'll show you now actually. So yeah, this is now me with just the backlight and the practical light turned on. So again, all these different lighting setups create different moods depending on what you want the look of your video to be. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video or you learned anything, or if you have any questions, just please hit me a DM on Instagram or write something down in the comments. Like the video if you liked or if you learned something new. Subscribe if you haven't so already. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Take care.